Hi there, it's Donovan, and welcome back to the special hour, episode 45. I remembered that definitely because I don't need Mr. Dean to tell me this time after that one multiversal.
Donovan, just do the intro. Just do the intro.
Welcome back. We have It's me, Donovan.
Oh my god!
Now, and I'm joined by Mr. Dean.
What's up, everyone? It's Mr. Dean. This episode of the special hour, we're gonna be doing another bracket because I feel like people have been enjoying them, and we definitely enjoyed figuring stuff out with it.
It'd be really funny if when we get Patnat back on and we just don't do a bracket, we just talk about what goes into the making of a game engine.
Yeah, well, I feel like it makes more sense for us to just rip off his game show instead of having him be included in it. Anyway, we have to say this every single time, but go check out Patnat Games. That is what this segment that we're doing is kind of based on, is bracket breakdown. Anyway, with that being said, before we get into this episode's bracket, Donovan, what have you been up to over the past week?
It's been less exciting for me personally, but for my little brother, he's graduating high school, so I'm kind of just enjoying all the fun stuff that he's been doing just in the background. So for me personally, I've just been grinding on YouTube and chilling out at the moment. Yeah, that's kind of it for this week. I think next week will be a little bit more eventful. What about you?
Well, Donovan, you should tell the audience maybe some behind the scenes about a little game called Yoshi and the fucking book, and maybe
yeah, did a pretty legit review of Yoshi and the fucking book. And to those that disagree with my totally legit review, by the way, I'm like the next IGN. Look out, Kotaku. If you disagree with my review, I will come to your house and I will egg your car. That's how much I love Yoshi and the fucking book. Yeah. I had that thumbnail cooked up in my head. When we talked before I released the video, and you were talking about some of my other thumbnails, and in the back of my head, I didn't want to spoil anything for you, because I'm like, I got something cooking up. You haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Donovan's thumbnail work. He's an artist whenever it comes to crafting just like statements of emotional weight and philosophical whatever. Anyway,
exactly. That's just as deep as my review of Yoshi and the fucking book.
Yeah, my week's been pretty chill. Earlier today, I was on a stream with SF Productions playing Mario Kart World, which that was a lot of fun. It was just like us hanging out with chat, talking about like Marvel and stuff on this particular stream. Other than that, though, pretty standard stuff, grinding on YouTube.
I heard you talking about Spider-Man.
We were talking about like which Spider-Man movies are our favorites, and then it kind of turned into a conversation about how I'm like low-key. I say low-key because I know the movie sucks. Like, I'm not saying it's like objectively a good movie, but I unironically love Spider-Man 3. And a lot of people hate it. I get it. I get why people don't like that movie, but at the same time, it gets unironically it just makes me smile, Donovan.
This is my hotter take. I know Spider-Man 3 is awful, and I love it, but I low-key think there's a lot of good ideas in there, and it makes the movie kind of like a 6 or 7 out of 10, which is better than what other people would think. People would think that's probably like, it's like a 3 out of 10 horrible movie. There's actual merit in some of its ideas. Does it stick the landing? No, but I still love it. It tried.
Was that an intentional 6-7 joke, Donovan?
That was a semi-intentional 6-7 joke.
Yeah, the thing with that movie, this could easily derail the podcast, so I'll try to keep this brief. They tried to jam pack way too many ideas that on their own, like having Sandman and that whole story could have been cool. Having a well-developed Venom would have been cool. Having a well-developed Harry Osborn like arc would have been cool, but jam packing all of them into a blender makes it really bloated. And then there's like just other problems with like Tobey Maguire's like awkward performance whenever he gets the symbiote.
I fucking love it. The people in 2007 weren't ready for Bully Maguire.
They weren't.
They just couldn't comprehend.
Really weren't. Yeah. So anyway, before we get into the actual bracket, Donovan, what have you been playing, if anything, over this past week? In the segment that we always do called Special Selects.
Yeah. I've been playing more of Pragmata. Pragmata is a really cool original IP from Capcom. Still going through it. I think I'll have more to say once I finish the game. I think I'm almost done, but all you need to know is that it's very fun, very unique. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. By the time this podcast comes out, I'll have another banger review out of the game. Let's hope I'm fertile No context needed. What else? Actually, I think that's kind of it. Really trying to grind on someone in Tomodachi Life, and I've been grinding in Pragmata. So
Donovan,
now we are not going to elaborate.
Why are we talking about our fertility windows on the special? Like, okay. Yeah, so this past week, I was telling Donovan shortly before clicking record, but today I've been playing Mario Tennis Fever. Well, okay, I haven't finished the adventure or anything. So far I probably played like 2 hours. It's fun. I can already tell it's not $70, but you know, I appreciate what they were going for with the fever mechanic. The art style is admittedly adorable. I don't want to go into my full thoughts yet because I haven't finished through the game. Maybe I'll make a dedicated review on my channel. Who knows? Other than that, I've been grinding through the Sonic games. I don't think I mentioned that on the last episode, really. And I'm not going to go into specifics on why I'm playing through the Sonic games, but there's some upcoming projects on the channel regarding that franchise. And it's cool because in real time, I'm slowly becoming a fan. I always appreciated Sonic, but you know, I had only really played Sonic Mania and like the racing games, but now I have a more firm, you know, like reverence for the franchise, and I can kind of feel myself, you know, falling down the rabbit hole. All right. So anyway, getting into this episode, we are going to be doing, like we said earlier, another bracket. This one is going to be for 16 Nintendo launch titles. These are obviously games that release alongside their respective consoles. Not every single console is represented in this bracket. I tried to be as diverse as I could.
Wait, is that fucking Duck Hunt?
That is Duck Hunt. That was, yeah, it was, it is Duck Hunt. Yeah, so not every console is represented here. I tried to be diverse in my selections. I think I did a pretty good job. The only rules are it has to be Nintendo, like, it can't just be like a full-on third-party launch title because, like, obviously it's a launch title for a Nintendo system, but it feels more appropriate to talk about, like, exclusives to their respective consoles. Although there's a few that are quote unquote exclusive. We'll get to that. That's later on. And then as for our grading scale, for the sake of this bracket, the quality of the game is relevant. However, we're more so talking about how good of a job the game does at showcasing what the console is capable of, what Nintendo's marketing of the console was, what Nintendo's focus with it, you know, whatever. It's more of an encapsulation of the years to come for that specific platform. Donovan, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's get started with our very first round. We have one from the SNES and one from the GameCube. F-Zero versus Luigi's Mansion.
At first, I thought you weren't going to say the games. I thought you were going to be like...
Yeah, everyone take a guess.
Yeah, for the first round, we have one of the games. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually a really good matchup. I think a lot of these first round ones, as we'll come to quickly find out, are pretty cut and dry. Not all of them, but this is one of the ones that's pretty tough. So these are two games I'm a big fan of, like massive fan. So it's gonna be painful for me.
I love Luigi's Mansion, but if I'm being real, it was not a very good showcase for what the next generation of Nintendo and the GameCube was, because like everyone's expecting, you know, big Mario, and then they got his snobby little brother with a vacuum cleaner in this slow paced game. And I like it. It's short, and I love the replayability, and I love the vibes. But as a launch title, it might have hurt more than it sold.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate for Luigi's Mansion. I agree. I think at its time, whenever it came out, it was controversial in a similar way to how like Wind Waker was controversial for Zelda. With that being said, I do think Luigi's Mansion did a good job at showcasing the quirkiness of what was to come with the GameCube. If you look at pretty much every mainline GameCube game, maybe with the exception of like Metroid Prime, all the games that were like the iterations of their franchises were a really wacky take. Super Mario Sunshine, completely outlandish compared to the other Mario games. Wind Waker, outlandish compared to the other Zelda games, so on and so forth. Metroid Prime is pushing Metroid to 3D, but it feels more grounded in Metroid. But I think Luigi's Mansion does kind of feel like that, where it's like, this console's weird. With that being said, I do think F-Zero should move on. I think F-Zero doesn't get its flowers enough enough for how unbelievably impressive it is to be a Super Nintendo like Mode 7 game, significantly better than Super Mario Kart, not only as a game, but also as a showcase for the Super Nintendo. I think F-Zero has still held up remarkably well to this day. Like, it definitely does have a learning curve, but like, it's actually pretty good still. Like, it's fun to control once you get a handle on it. It has a lot of personality. I would say I'm biased, but I also love Luigi's Mansion 2. So actually, I don't think I'm that biased. I just think as a launch title, it should be F-Zero.
Yeah, I think F-Zero should move on. Despite it being the first F-Zero, it still holds up tremendously well today. I mean, F-Zero 99 is completely based off of the original, so that goes to show that it still holds up to modern racing games. What you said before showcases the SNES's power and the capabilities. Yeah, let's move it on. No need to argue there.
I just think Luigi's Mansion is a good showcase of the GameCube, but less in a technical way and more in like a personality way. However, being that the GameCube didn't sell that well, I don't think it should move on just on that merit. And plus, that's more of like a retrospect thing than like
sorry,
this was
Luigi.
Okay, next one. This one's easy as fuck. So we won't spend too much time on this. Wait, you were gonna okay. I'm interested to hear your argument. I think this is so
I
obvious.
have very little experience with Pilotwings Resort. It could be like a garbage game. I just know that it's in
Donovan,
Island.
Donovan, can I read what the games are so that way the viewer knows what we're talking about?
Yeah. My bad.
So we're talking about Super Mario 64 DS, specifically the DS one, and then Pilotwings Resort, as Donovan just said. I think it is so cut and dry Super Mario 64 DS, like not even a conversation. Mm-hmm. I've played Pilotwings Resort. I've already talked about it on the podcast. It's all right. It kind of is like an expansion on the island flyover mode from Wii Sports Resort. However, even though there's more to do in it, I literally prefer Island Flyover because the personality of Woohoo Island is still kind of there in spades. And I feel like that might sound stupid if you haven't played Pilotwings Resort because it's the same location, but it does feel more barren in Pilotwings Resort. I feel like the numbers of the 3DS sales should speak for it not really being an effective launch title. I mean, granted, it's not a headlining Nintendo series, but the 3DS didn't really get going until like Super Mario 3D Land?
What even were the launch titles for the 3DS? We got this.
It was this and like Nintendogs plus Cats. Like there's really not much to choose.
Damn.
Everything else was like third parties that didn't really do a good job at showcasing that. So not only is Pilotwings Resort, it's just like an okay game. Super Mario 64 DS, despite the problems it does have, which, okay, this could be an interesting discussion.
Was this yesterday or like 2 days ago? I thought that was going to be a Mario Kart 64 situation where you were just going to absolutely hate the game no matter what. This game is not moving on.
Okay, here's the thing. I think this game is a really good showcase of the fact that it had a full-on 3D game running on a portable in 2004. And another game I could have put also is the Metroid Prime Hunters game on the DS. I'm pretty sure that was a launch title.
That was the demo, which is really funny. Just a demo.
Well, it still is kind of, I guess it counts still. Either way, I went with this game because it's more, I guess, like well-known and more commercially successful. The reason why this one is kind of interesting is because it showcases a big fault of the DS as well as a big strength of the DS. Because on the one hand, it is running a full-on 3D game, which was a big deal at the time. The fact that the DS only had a D-pad also inhibited the game from being as good as it could have been. Even then, I still think it should be 64DS.
I think 64DS should move on. Again, it's another technical showcase, kind of like F-Zero.
Okay, well, F-Zero is like a good game, though. So,
oh, you're gonna anger some people.
Okay. That was kind of a bit. I do think Super Mario 64 DS is good. It's just the controls are shit. But like the game itself, like there's a good game in there.
Yeah, it's like the DS is, look, it can do 3D. And also it's like, oh God, it can do 3D.
Honestly, that's a beautiful way of putting it. But I still would rather that be a showcase than the nothingness of Pilotwings Resort.
Pilotwings Resort.
So
did it even do 3D well?
I'm sure it had 3D functionality. It better have. Even if it did, though, it's like no one talks about that game, and it's kind of to me, it's because it's like a nothing burger. I'm really not trying to roast Pilotwings Resort. If you like it, that's perfectly fine. I get it why people like it, especially if they like Island Flyover. It's just for me, it does nothing. I enjoy the other Pilotwings games too. So it's not even like I don't care about Pilotwings. I just think it should be 64 DS.
Let's get it out of here.
Okay, so moving on to the next round, we have Mario Kart World versus Wii Sports.
This is actually a bit of a tough one, but
I really don't think this is that tough. As someone that's a dick rider of Mario Kart World, I've grown to be like a hardcore defender of the game. It's Wii Sports.
Before we started this, I did text Mr. Dean, I wonder which one's going to win. This battle made me question that a little bit, but like, come on, it's Wii Sports. Do we really need to explain that?
This is the classic case of, I think Mario Kart World is a better game than Wii Sports. Wii Sports is a better launch title than Mario Kart World. Mario Kart World is a good launch title, don't get me wrong. It showcases the power capability of the Switch 2 with it literally loading in this entire open world that would not have worked on the regular Switch. So I'm not saying it's a bad launch title. With that being said, Wii Sports it literally changed that whole generation, not even just for Nintendo. You had like Microsoft getting into the game with Kinect, which may not have been a good thing, but it was a massive deal though. And I still do think Wii Sports is held up. I think it's fun. Yeah, I just think as a launch title, Wii Sports is like one of the launch titles of all time.
Wii Sports like single-handedly skyrocketed Nintendo and the Wii just tremendously. Originally, it was going to be Wii Play as the pack-in title. What a terrible world that would have been. But yeah, it just went to show, including Wii Sports was legitimately a game changer. If Wii Sports wasn't in the pack-in, we would have been looking at it completely, maybe not super different, but a very different landscape.
Well, Wii Play kind of serves a different purpose than Wii Sports, because Wii Play was more so showcasing the pointer of the Wiimote, whereas Wii Sports was more about like the motion.
I feel like Wii Sports is definitely a way more polished tech demo because
for sure
they're all tech demos. Nintendo's just like, oh god, we made a lot of sport tech demos. Let's just call it Wii Sports, and then they just plopped everything else into Wii Play.
Yeah, I mean, Wii Sports still has a little bit of clunkiness, mainly with like boxing. Even as a whole, it did a really good job. I mean, just look at the sales of the Wii. Yeah, I love you, Mario Kart World, but we're talking about launch titles here. Next round, this I love this round is awesome. This is awesome. All right, we got the coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb round. So we got Duck Hunt from the Nintendo Entertainment System versus New Super Mario Bros. U. Okay.
The thing is, it's not even like a hydrogen bomb. It's more like a 20-pound baby versus coughing baby.
That's you're right. I was overhyping it. New Super Mario Bros. U is a shit launch title. Like not only is it mid, it's like, okay, the game itself is not bad. It's a good game. As a launch title, horrible. This created so much annoyance with people being like, oh, so this is just every Mario game now is the new Super formula. New Super Mario Bros. 2 had just come out. Not even that, but graphically, while this was the first mainline Mario game to enter into HD, it kind of looked a lot like New Super Mario Bros. Wii.
Show the game to any normal person, not someone in the know of Mario, like, oh, it's the Acorn suit, of course it's you. Show it to like your mom. They're gonna get them mixed up. They're
going to get them mixed up.
Yeah,
and the thing with New Super Mario Bros. U 2 is it no doubt played a role in in not only the confusion but like the reluctance of people to even want to upgrade to the Wii U, because they're looking at this launch title that's supposed to sell you on a system and they're like, this looks like the game I've been playing on the Wii. Yeah, the New Super Mario Bros. U, and we have another Wii U launch title later on in this list that would have been a much better launch title than this, but we'll talk about that later. Not only is this a bad launch title, Duck Hunt is obviously overshadowed by another launch title for the NES. With that being said, I think Duck Hunt's good.
Duck Hunt's funny.
It shows off the zapper, it
the
plays a
zapper's
role.
Cool. This is completely unrelated, but Gunpei Yokoi made, before the game Duck Hunt, he made like the physical toy Duck Hunt, which seems infinitely cooler than the video game experience. It's where they had like a little projector and they projected ducks on the wall, and you had like a toy gun and you had to shoot them. I think that's infinitely cooler. But back to gaming. Duck Hunt, yeah, that's kind of funny. We were just dogging about how bad of a launch title New Super Mario Bros. U is. Duck Hunt showed that the Nintendo Entertainment System was not a game system. It was a toy because it had a gun, which is my favorite toy, obviously. I'm American.
Duck Hunt was a good pick to launch alongside, once again, another game we'll get to in a minute.
Low key, I like earlier, before we started, I questioned, is that fucking Duck Hunt? But now that I'm thinking about it, Duck Hunt actually might be a better launch title than New Super Mario Bros. U.
Well, no shit. What do you mean? Question.
All right, let's move it.
New Super Mario Bros. U is like, I was low-key putting that on the list to make fun of it. Okay, once again, I want to make sure people get the distinction. I think New Super Mario Bros. U is a good game. As a video game, it's good. As a launch title, not good. There's a difference. Next round. All right, so for the second half of the first round, we have two of these matchups are like actually Coughing Baby versus Hydrogen Bomb, like times 10. Starting off with this one. 1-2 Switch versus Super Mario 64.
Let's come on.
So yeah, which one is it? Let's talk. Let's iron this one out, Donovan.
So obviously, it's the one with the cow milking mini game. Moving on.
Honestly, we could just move on. Well, you know what? We won't even talk about 64 because we'll just wait to talk about it in the next round.
We'll save
we're not gonna
precious minutes.
Yeah, we're not gonna waste our bullet points on that game now. All right, so this next round is actually one of the ones I was excited to talk about because this one's genuinely interesting. And these are for most of this list, I kind of randomly put the games on. I wasn't really specifically doing these matchups in any order. This one is the one exception. We have the two Zelda games. We have Breath of the Wild for the Switch and Twilight Princess for the Wii. And this one's interesting because both of these games were originally developed for the preceding console. So neither of them were even like made from the ground up to showcase the hardware.
True, that's very funny. But like, I never consider Breath of the Wild to be a Wii U game, and I kind of think of Twilight Princess as a Wii game.
So remember, we're not comparing them as games. We're comparing them as launch titles.
Twilight Princess showed the world that Nintendo has that dog in them, that wolf in them. Still, they can make gritty, mature games, but it kind of shoehorned in that Wii Remote functionality where it could have been substituted as a button press. As a showcase for what the Wii can do, in a way, yes and no. It kind of, like, sword fighting, I don't equate it to, like, motion control sword fighting, I don't equate it to Twilight Princess. I equate that to Skyward Sword.
Yeah. Is it weird that, honestly, in my head, I still associate Twilight Princess with the GameCube?
No, it's not that weird. I always thought of it as a Wii game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what system you played it on first, maybe. Whenever it comes to Zelda, Skyward Sword is the Wii Zelda game. That's just like that's how it works in my mind. I'm not saying that Twilight Princess is a GameCube game, it's just how my mind associates them. With Breath of the Wild, it is a good showcase of the Switch. I mean, I think that the fact that you have a game that is as grand in scale available on a hybrid system is impressive. And I remember it being one of the things that sold many people, including myself, on the system back in 2017. My vote's leaning towards Breath of the Wild, but you could probably convince me if you wanted to.
No, I think it's Breath of the Wild. It shows exactly what the Switch is for, bringing all these great experiences on the go anywhere.
So we'll also kind of wait to fully dive into that one whenever. That's going to be a good matchup, Breath of the Wild versus 64, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, so really, this is going to be the type of bracket where the first round, we just kind of speed run through all these, and then the second round is whenever things actually get interesting. So this next round is probably the funniest one on the whole ranking. The game that started it all, the one that saved the gaming industry, blah, 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 Super Mario Bros. Against another Pilotwings. We have Pilotwings 64.
We hate Pilotwings here on the special hour.
Okay, I think Pilotwings on the Super Nintendo and 64 are like good games. Like, I don't even think Pilotwings 64 is a bad launch title. It's like, come on, it's against Super Mario Bros.
Come on.
Yeah, like, I mean, this is one where I feel like we should just move it on and just talk about Super Mario Bros. In the next round whenever.
Yeah, bye Pilotwings.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Next, so we have our final first round matchup. I promise we'll actually have some interesting commentary in the next round. We're saving our energy right now. But this is a deceptively closer round than people would immediately assume it to be. So we have Nintendo Land for the Wii U versus Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. Now, Nintendo Land is already, to this day, pretty much the only game worth owning a Wii U for in the year 2026. Like, I really can't think of anything else on that system that is still making me go like, you know what? Yeah, I should keep it.
The case of Mario World, I remember seeing this during the time, like Super Mario World obviously allotted back then and now, but it did get some criticism for it feeling like just, Super Mario Brothers 3 again it's punching up against the newcomer Sega and Sonic. And Mario World, although I think Mario World is amazing, and I think it's better than some of most of the Sonic games. Now, the comments are going to be on fire.
I think that they've probably already been on fire, Donovan. Just bring it on.
It's just that Mario World compared to Sonic, like, I'm gonna be real, I think Mario World is a better game than Sonic the Hedgehog, but Sonic the Hedgehog has that cool factor. It really shows the speed you can have with 16 bits.
Wait, Donovan, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Mario World versus Nintendo Land, not versus
I know.
Why are we comparing?
Considering the time, Super Mario World, although very good, did feel like old news. Now, in the terms of Nintendo Land, it showcased the gamepad pretty well. As you said before, it's like the only game worth getting a Wii U for these days.
Maybe aside from Super Mario Maker, if you really hate building levels with Mario Maker.
Yeah, if you really hate Super Mario Maker 2.
Like, Nintendo Land, it's such a better showcase of the gamepad than Mario Bros. U that it's not even really funny.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely considering moving on Nintendo Land.
Yeah, I think I've made up my mind already. Sorry, Mario World.
And you know why? Is because F-Zero to me is the definitive Super Nintendo like launch title. It's the game that was like, whoa, this is the next hardware. Not saying Mario World didn't do that, but F-Zero is a bigger statement. And it's funnier to move in. It's funnier to move on Nintendo Land also. Because
putting Yoshi in his fucking place.
I genuinely cannot wait for the comments on this. Yeah. Okay. All right. So moving on to the second round. This is where things should start to get more spicy. Second round matchup, F-Zero versus Super Mario 64 DS. This is the only second round matchup that I don't think is actually that interesting. I think it's still on
F-Zero.
It's still F-Zero. And I think it really comes back to what I was talking about before, where the DS kind of acts as both a catalyst for, the DS both acts as a catalyst for what makes 64 DS so impressive, but it also hampers the potential enjoyment of it with one of its limitations, that being not having any way to fully do 3-directional movement. It only has a D-pad. Because of that, in hindsight, it kind of is a double-edged sword. So I do think it's F-Zero.
I mean, both of these games showcase power.
Yeah, technically they both do. I think F-Zero is a more well-rounded showcase.
Yeah, there's a bit of a problem with the 64 DS situation.
Wii Sports versus Donovan's arch nemesis, Duck Hunt.
Yeah, we gotta kill the dog.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I was just going like, all right, the second round is going to be way more interesting. We've gone through both of the first and second round matchups in like 2 minutes. I mean, I really don't think we need to elaborate that much on this one either. Like, shout out Duck Hunt. You're awesome.
Yeah, shout out Duck Hunt.
Yeah, but unfortunately we're going to have to put you down. These other two matchups are more interesting, or at least this first one for sure. Super Mario 64 Breath of the Wild. This is spicy. Donovan, do you want to give the opening statement?
64 showcased what is possible with 3D movement and really showed why the N64 is the much better buy than a 32-bit system of the Saturn PlayStation. This truly showed not only just the power, but what is possible moving forward with 3D environments. Now, Breath of the Wild, I mean, that's Breath of the Wild, showed, you can take this grand experience anywhere and play however you want. We have two really good showcases of what its respective systems can do.
Yeah, okay, and I'll put it this way. Whenever it comes to Super Mario 64, I really can't overemphasize enough how big of a deal it was that their first statement with a 3D platformer or just 3D game in general was as good and generally polished. Although, 30 years later, there's some flaws out, like the camera is a little clunky at the time. And I still think overall it's held up pretty well for the most part. If the game wasn't good and it was kind of like a shitty first attempt at 3D, I think that generation, like the years to come with like the games would have been so different. Like I really think it's a massive deal that 64 was as big of a hit, both commercially, but also just like the fact that the game was as polished at the time as it was. Like that, it's a big deal. Not even just as a Nintendo 64 launch title, but also just like as a statement for giving comfort for people to go into the third dimension. I wasn't alive at the time. I have understood how confused people were by like what 3D gaming meant. I mean, so much so that they had to create a character to explain the camera. All that to say, it was a big deal for Super Mario 64 to be as good as it was. With that being said, a game that I was very much alive for and I was right there during its prime, I remember vividly the Switch's launch and how magical Breath of the Wild was. Not only as a game, but the feeling of docking your Switch, playing Breath of the Wild, taking it out and going wherever you want with it. I think Breath of the Wild was the best possible game they could have launched the Switch with. I think even though it was originally developed as a Wii U game, the reason why for you and me and many other people we associate it with the Switch in our minds is because it's so indicative of why the Switch is so valuable as a system. If it was a hybrid console that you could only play small scale games, it'd be cool, but it wouldn't hit as hard as it does. And I think a big part of that is a game like Breath of the Wild, and there's very few games that could have like brought in the gaming community at large to respect the capability of the Switch as much as Breath of the Wild did. This matchup could really go either way. Like both of these are like final matchup quality games. So Donovan, where's your head at? What are you leaning to?
Is there another game that could have replaced Breath of the Wild as the launch title? And like the only other game I think of is Mario Odyssey, which is another really great game and really magical. It's a really magical experience just in general, just taking such a huge game like that anywhere you go. But the thing is with Super Mario 64, I mean, what other game was there at the time that could have replaced Super Mario 64 that would have shown off the capabilities of not just the 64 bits, but also what is possible with 3D environmental gameplay.
I guess Ocarina of Time, but that came out like 2 years later.
That came out 2 years later and needed some influence from what they worked on before with Super Mario 64.
Yeah, that's true, because Ocarina of Time, these are two different situations, because Odyssey was already mostly complete, if not fully complete, whenever the Switch came out, albeit Breath of the Wild had been in development for years. But even then, Breath of the Wild itself didn't dictate the direction that Odyssey was good. Like, Breath of the Wild's a great game. It's in a different genre. I think Odyssey would have still, existed in its own vacuum if it weren't for Breath of the Wild. And I think you raise a good point where 64 was the 64 launch title, because as good as every other game on a 64, and not literally every other game, but you know what I mean. As good as the other classics on the 64 ended up being, I do think that goes back to what I was saying about how 64 and the quality of it informed the direction of game design. I mean, kind of to this day, not only, but especially in that generation. And that goes beyond the 64. That's also, we're also talking about the PlayStation. You know what? Yeah, I think it's Super Mario 64.
Like with Breath of the Wild, amazing game. Really good showcase. But at the time, you could also, we don't know if Mario Odyssey replaced Breath of the Wild, if the Switch would have been as successful. We just don't know that. But theoretically, it could have been another game that released that year was Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is another humongous open world game. That could have been the launch title and could have served its purpose as showing off, like, you can bring this humongous game anywhere you go. I feel like context matters a little bit more here?
I think from a commercial standpoint, if theoretically Odyssey was the launch title instead, I think it would have worked commercially just as well as Breath of the Wild would have. But I do think the scale of Breath of the Wild as an open world is kind of irreplaceable. Obviously, it's not the biggest open world of all time. That would be absurd. But I do think that there was a magic there that I vividly remember that no other game, at least off the top of my head, would have replicated in the same way for a Nintendo system. That's just my take, though. I am leaning towards 64 now.
I think I'm leaning more towards 64. I mean, there were 3D games at the time, and even Nintendo were developing 3D games in conjunction with Super Mario 64. It's the game that showed off what is possible. Most modern games today, you'd be lying if you said it doesn't have some DNA from Mario 64.
And then the final second round matchup. So do you want to be quirky and put Nintendo Land over the original Super Mario? We can't. I think we can get away with doing that for Mario World, but we have to move on Mario Bros. We just have to.
Yeah.
I'll give my flowers to Nintendo Land. Both still an underrated game. And I guess, honestly, it's not even underrated anymore because people kind of yap about how underrated Nintendo Land is. So at this point, it's just rated. But it is a good game, and it is an even better launch title for the Wii U. With that being said, it's up against the game that literally saved the gaming industry from a crash.
Say the line.
yeah. I have to say my white boy Nintendo YouTuber line. I think out of every bracket we've done, this is by far the hardest Final Four we've had. First up, we have F-Zero versus Wii Sports. Oh, God. Oh.
Sorry, F-Zero. Wii Sports beautifully showcases how motion-controlled gaming can translate to what you see on the TV. It just showcased that, hey, you don't need a traditional controller to play games. You just need to mimic the motion of a baseball bat, of a tennis racket. You know what boxing is. Just do that. And it just made it so easy, so simple. And it just pioneered a revolution of accessibility for gaming and just pioneered motion control gaming in general. Now you can critique how it used the motion, you can critique it just being waggle, but if you just ask any normal person that played Wii Sports during the day, okay, maybe not 100% of the time, but most of the time they'll say something like, it was like I was playing golf. I just waggled around the Wii remote and my character just did the tennis racket motion. No, they're probably just gonna be like, yeah, I did the forehand motion of a tennis racket and it hit the ball. There's something just magical about Wii Sports translating motion control gaming to video games. All I could say about F-Zero is that it's a solid racing game and it showed mode 7, and yeah, that's kind of it.
But F-Zero. All right, fine. Yeah, you know what? That whole time you were talking, it was like that moment whenever, like, you're in an argument and you realize midway through that you're low-key wrong.
You're looking at like a framed photo of F-Zero and you're just like stroking the picture of Captain Falcon as he's about to get executed by Matt.
Well, I would be stroking something looking at that.
Okay. Well, I'm not blaming you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so, I do agree. Yeah, I do agree that Wii Sports is indicative of Nintendo's pursuit of creating an experience that anyone, regardless of age, experience with gaming, whatever, can properly engage with. There is a beauty to Wii Sports with how you could be with your 90-year-old grandparent playing Wii Sports bowling or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it is. It probably should move on.
But whatever.
But can I just give my flowers to F-Zero though? Like,
yeah.
F-Zero was such a damn good showcase of Mode 7. It's just like F-Zero was just such a good, like, oh my god.
It's gotta go where all the fishies go. I'm sorry, Captain Falcon.
I'm too much of an F-Zero shill. I need to shut up. Moving on to Super Mario 64 versus Super Mario Bros. Oh god. I think it's 64. And actually now I'm confident. I just thought about it the last 10 seconds and I formulated my argument. I'm like, yeah, it's 64. Here's why. While Super Mario Bros was revolutionary for 2D platformers and just gaming in general, and they've definitely played a role in the success of the Nintendo Entertainment System and bringing back the gaming market, a lot of that has to do with the aspects of the NES, not just Super Mario Bros, including, I'm sure Duck Hunt played kind of a role too, but it was also like Rob the Robot. It was the way they marketed it. No, I'm not even like joking. Like I think Rob did play a big role, just like with the way they marketed the console. So I'm not saying that Super Mario Bros. Didn't play a role. That would be stupid. But I do think that as a launch title, I don't want to overinflate. Like I don't want to be like this game is the 100% sole reason, whereas there's other factors at play with that. I think there's still an argument for why it should move on, but I think the whole statement about 3D gaming to me is honestly even more profound.
You were talking about how Mario Brothers also had Duck Hunt and also had Rob, but consider the fact Super Mario 64 also had Pilotwings 64.
Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think we should move on 64.
I'm not saying that Super Mario Bros. Isn't like massively revolutionary for gaming. It absolutely was, especially for 2D platformers. So I'm not saying that like Super Mario 64 changed the game for 3D. Therefore, like it gets a close matchup. Super Mario Bros. Did the exact same thing for honestly just like not even just platforming games, but just gaming in general. I feel like the statement that 64 made going into the oncoming generations kind of feels more magical, and I think 64 has held up as a well-rounded, expansive game more so than Super Mario Bros. Has.
Super Mario Brothers, it's such a simple game because it's the first one. It's super easy. Super easy to jump into. The de facto platform.
I feel like 64 is too.
Super Mario, yeah, I think it's good, but sometimes, both of these games have some jank, unpolished things about them. This is a really, really tough decision, but I think I have a little bit more of a connection with Super Mario 64.
Okay, I do think that now the argument you're making is kind of skirting into the territory of comparing these games as video games, not as launch titles. Because now you're talking about like, I don't know, I feel like Super Mario Bros. Is more, like, it pulls the player in quicker, no matter how casual they are, which I agree with. Even with that being said, though, the way Super Mario 64 is designed, like, I feel like Bob-omb Battlefield is just as effective for teaching the player how to navigate 3D as much as Level 1-1 was for 2D. Like, I feel like that, I mean, it's been yapped about to death. Like, it would be just as cliche for me to be like, Bob-omb Battlefield was a expertly designed, but it's true, though.
It teaches the player how to jump. 1-1 does that.
No, but I'm not wrong though. Like people talk about it because it's true.
Yeah.
Like these two games are very comparable in many ways in terms of the way it teaches the player basic game mechanics that we take for granted today. So even comparing them just in terms of like which game is more influential in a vacuum would be difficult. I think if we're talking about which one represents the oncoming system, to me it's still 64. I can't, like, I'm thinking about which game. Is it okay if I get brain rot, Donovan?
Yeah.
64 has more aura. It just does. It just does.
I do think it has more aura. It's not a launch title for the Famicom, but in terms of the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, that was poised, it's a game system, but Nintendo wanted you to think it was a toy. Does Super Mario Bros. Accentuate that it's a toy? Does it say that it's it feels more like a game, so I think I'm leaning towards Mario 64 now, a little bit more.
Okay, but I feel like with that, they were more so marketing the NES as a toy, not because they wanted to market it as a toy, but because they kind of had to do that as a way of circumventing the North American market. Yeah, I see your point, but I do think Super Mario Bros. It is a fantastic launch title, like for the NES, for sure. Here's another point though. Although it was a launch title, I do think Super Mario Bros. 3 does an even better job at showcasing the capability of the NES and what the extent of design could be for that console, whereas 64, I could see an argument for another Nintendo 64 game exceeding it. I think Super Mario 64 is still a very big statement, even amongst the sea of other games that came out for the system.
Okay, I'm gonna move on Mario 64.
Wait, are we gonna make it through a whole bracket without needing to call anyone? This is gonna be like,
oh well, we'll see about that.
Final showcase: Wii Sports versus Super Mario 64.
Son of a... Okay. Hydrogen bomb versus hydrogen bomb.
So these are both hydrogen bombs for very different reasons. We just yapped about 64 and the statement it made about 3D gaming. And Wii Sports, it's a statement, but for casual gaming, for bringing everyone together regardless of their ability to play video games. I suppose there could be an argument about Wii Sports. Like it marked the success of the Wii, but it also kind of marked in a way like the downfall of Nintendo for like the following decade after or I guess like the following like 7 years or so after the Wii. I don't really attribute that to Wii Sports though. I just attribute that to Nintendo not understanding the market. I don't know. This one's really close. I will say this isn't really a big point because we're not comparing them as games, but Wii Sports Resort is the definitive Wii Sports, and it kind of fixes all the little bumps with the motion controls, and it has a better package of games. But with that being said, I don't think that downplays Wii Sports as a launch title. I still think that Wii Sports did what no other game really could, and the fact that it was free with the console is a big deal as well.
Was Super Mario 64 packed in? No, it wasn't.
I don't believe so. No.
Wii Sports is like just... You can't separate Wii Sports from the Wii. It is so ingrained into its DNA, and you can argue it has just a much stronger presence within the Wii itself. It just is... When you think of Wii, you think of Wii Sports. Now with Mario 64... Yeah, you do think of the N64, but there's a lot of other games that can also be attributed to the N64 equally or even greater, to a greater degree. Wii Sports is just, like, you can't think of any other Wii game. Like, first thing that comes into your head for most people when they think of Wii, it's Wii Sports. But this is not the people's bracket, this is our bracket. And what I think of Wii, I do think of Wii Sports, so I guess that doesn't really matter.
But I think that is a good point, though, because the Wii is inseparable from the console, and I feel like that is the mark of, like, a perfect launch title.
Mm-hmm. With 64, yeah, that's Nintendo 64. It says it on the box, it's 64. But I also really think about Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. But with the Wii?
But this goes back to the point you just made. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, even though not the same genre as Super Mario 64, no doubt are the way they are because of Super Mario 64 to some level. I don't really know what the alternate reality would look like. What would Ocarina of Time be like if Super Mario 64 wasn't there to like kind of be a blueprint for how to navigate 3D? I don't know, but I do think that Super Mario 64 played a massive impact. I also don't know the full extent of like when development on both games started. I don't know. I'm kind of talking out of my ass here, but I'm kind of leaning towards Wii Sports at the moment.
I believe Ocarina of Time did start development around the same time 64 did. I mean, Mario 64.
Okay, so then why did you make that point then?
Mario 64, because it was finished, still had a great influence on Zelda because while they were still making it at the same time, Zelda was in a much more rudimentary state because Miyamoto was focusing on getting Mario out the door first, so he applied most of his knowledge or what he knew of 3D gaming at the time and what he wanted 3D gaming at the time to Mario 64, and then he further built on that to finish Ocarina of Time. But getting back on track, I think Wii Sports is just, you can't separate that, man. It's too strong of a bond.
Honestly, it's Wii Sports. Like I really think it's Wii Sports.
we made some great arguments for Mario 64, but Wii Sports made it up here with zero trouble at all. And right here in this battle, I think it's a losing battle for Mario 64.
Damn. Okay, well, guys, this is a big deal. We made it through a whole bracket without needing to call anyone. So me and Donovan were on the same
it truly
wavelength.
was the special hour bracket breakdown.
All right, well, yeah, if you guys have any more ideas for brackets we should do, feel free to let us know down in the comments. Thank you everyone for listening. As always, we're pushing the big 50, which is, Donovan, can you actually believe we're reaching 50?
So old.
Our knees are
thank you
cracking.
for staying with us for 45 episodes.
Where can the people find you on the internet if they liked what you had to say or your voice or you?
I hope you did. If not, please go to the comments. I'm DonovanDud on YouTube. I'm also on Discord, the Nintendo Boys. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, Mr. Dean. If the people liked you, where could they find you?
If you liked me, you can find me on YouTube, MrDean44. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky, and I'm also doing short form on Instagram and TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. And then you can also find me on my Discord server, the Dean Kingdom. Bye.
Bye.